Speaking of green men or green people, have you guys seen the She-Hulk trailer? She-Hulk. Oh my god, I kind of want to check this out. Okay, I know because everybody seems to like this thing. Like, I'm not gonna like play it with the sound on. I'm just gonna let the image flash. But everybody seems to like this thing. But I think it looks really bad. It might be like the worst out of the like Disney Plus Marvel limited series, or I guess they're limited series. Like most of these things aren't like continuous series that they plan on going with. I think Moon Knight wasn't. I haven't seen Moon Knight yet, but from my understanding, it's not. These a lot of these are just gonna be one shot. I'm assuming like what's the Scarlet Witch show with Vision? I forget what it's called. WandaVision. WandaVision. It seems like those are just one off. So I'm not sure what they plan on doing with these things, but I feel like Marvel's getting to the point where it just doesn't make sense. Like, I feel like when you were watching the first couple of phases up until the Infinity War and Endgame, you had an idea of what they were building up to. It seemed more clear, like, oh, here's a stone, there's a stone, there's a stone, and there's this purple guy at the end. He's the final boss. You just got to beat all the mini bosses, to get to the final boss, which makes sense. But then when you get into the multiverse stuff, like in this latest phase, Multiverse Madness wasn't that good to me. I mean, it was okay. It was mid. The fact that it was mid made it bad. It's just not clear as to what direction that they're heading. So it's really confusing. Like in these latest phases, like who's the villain? Is it Kang the Conqueror? Is it I don't know. Is it Scarlet Witch? I don't. You don't really see who the big bad is, and I feel like they have a lot of story threads going in, especially when you mix in like Eternals and Shang-Chi and all this. So the fact that they threw a She-Hulk trailer in here, I mean, why? There's plenty of other stories to tell. I mean, I don't think She-Hulk is a fan favorite character, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what their deal is. I'm not sure why they're heading this route, but let's one other thing that they did a disservice to She-Hulk is that like they compare Hulk, like Hulk is in this series. Like look at the CGI. Well, here it is. CGI on this thing is just really bad for her. For some reason, she looks a lot more cartoony. Like y'all remember that movie Flubber? She looks like a lot more like Flubber in her own series, but they have the Hulk who looks a lot better than her in this same show, and he looks fine. Right, and so it's just very confusing as to what the heck they're doing here, because it's like, yeah, I know you want to give the female protagonist like the lead in this her own show, but the fact that you're doing her a disservice by making the Hulk look better than her in her own show, I think they just need to put more time and work in. And I know they still have a couple of months, but I don't think they're gonna get this right by the time it releases. It's like releasing in August, right? Yeah, like this this looks funny. This looks entertaining. Yeah, August 17th. But look at that. That looks horrible. That looks horrible. I mean, it's not that it looks horrible. It looks like the Uncanny Valley thing with the Hulk looks a lot better than it does with her. I could believe the Hulk a little bit more than this. Looks like cell shaded almost, at least to me. But yeah, like She-Hulk doesn't look as good. Yeah, but She-Hulk does not look as good in her own show. Like, okay, that's really bad right there. Something about the face and even even the way she's interacting with the phone, it just doesn't look good. And I'm not trying to say this whole thing rides on the CGI. Narratively, when you talk about the grander narrative of the Marvel Universe, and I say this with a grain of salt because obviously there's ridiculous stuff going on in the Marvel Universe all the time, but like I'm just curious as to when is this supposed to be taking place. And I don't like stuff where it's like this is part of the bigger story, but you're never gonna see this person. Like a lot of the stuff that bothered me with the Netflix shows, on the Netflix side of things, with the Marvel Universe was that like the Marvel Universe had an influence on those shows, but those shows never had an influence on the Marvel Universe. That may change because now they're at Disney Plus, obviously. but like I wanted to see Daredevil in the Avengers, or I wanted to see Punisher in the Avengers, like movies interacting and their storylines to affect the Marvel universe. I think the Marvel universe with Disney Plus is doing it better, because if you watch WandaVision, it did affect the Doctor Strange movie. Like, it directly correlates. So they are making a change in that regard. I'm still waiting to see the Loki payoff in Kong. I think that's going to be in Ant-Man 3, because I think Kang the Conqueror is in Ant-Man 3 as the main villain. So we'll see if that show affects Ant-Man, and maybe is Loki going to be in Ant-Man, maybe, because it seems like they set up Loki to be the direct like protagonist, I guess, against the Kang's antagonist in the Loki series. How do you feel about the Netflix adaptation Resident Evil that they're dropping? I haven't seen it. Maybe I could check out the trailer here soon. But yeah, like, so when does this take place is my biggest question, right? Why is it important? I feel like there's a lot of shows that can add to the grander story of the Marvel universe, and you can tell it through these characters. I'm trying to understand where She-Hulk fits into this. When does this take place? And when does, like, is She-Hulk gonna be in the Avengers? Is She-Hulk gonna, like, like, is she gonna be like a playing factor in the Marvel universe, like, moving forward? Like she's gonna be in an Avengers, or maybe in her own squad, or I feel like sometimes it depends on their popularity. So, like, if she's not popular, what are they gonna do? You know what I mean? But that CGI looks really bad, and oh god, that does too. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's the face. I think, like, yeah, the body does. It looks like it's CGI. That's the problem. Hulk looks a lot more natural in his environment, and I don't think they got her face right. Yeah, like, you can't just have her, like, you can't do close-up shots. See, the problem with filmmaking nowadays, right, that I've noticed is, like, back in the day when you watch old films, they had to use more practical effects and they had a lot less to work with, right? And so they used to hide, like, they used to design movies around, like, hiding things in shadows and, like, make, like, quick motions, which is still felt real in that environment and felt really good, but it didn't matter too much as much, and they hit it very well. And, like, it didn't take you out of it as quickly as, like, CGI is a little too good nowadays, but not good enough to where you don't notice it. So kind of just like, oh, okay, I'm watching a really like a ridiculous kid show, and it's kind of whatever. But Fando, you need to DM me back in Discord. Okay, I'll open Discord soon after I finish the just chatting portion. Feminism is taking over the world when She-Hulk got brought about. Oh, during the time period, I think there was a big feminist movement. Yeah, when She-Hulk was released, I'm pretty sure. I think her and Captain Marvels are direct effects of that transition. Yeah. I think I know what era you're talking about in comics, and I think that's where she came from. To me and all my friends, She-Hulk was only good in Marvel versus Capcom, but there was never this, like, iconic run of She-Hulk that was, like, that I can remember, at least. Not trying to be offensive by any means, but I know the whole reasoning, obviously, but I had a direct impact of getting announced in the same year. The thing is, I just, I'm cool with having female characters, obviously. Have a bunch of them, but it's like sometimes they give them, like, they don't do them right. They don't let them earn their strengths and their, through character development and failure, like they do the male characters, which is still a sign of, like, kind of like this weird sexism, if you ask me. Like, what's her name from Star Wars? The main character from the new Star Wars. Not Padme. Daisy Ridley's character. She was just, like, OP off the rip, and she looks like she could control herself off rip. I mean, maybe this is, like, several episodes in, but it took Hulk, like, several movies and a couple of years of training and progress to get to the point where he can, have this weird dialogue with the Hulk, Bruce Banner. It looks like they just gave it to her off rip, which I think is comic accurate, though. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think she was ever really, like, this uncontrollable person. Maybe that's what they're doing. I feel like this last 2 or 3 years, anything that's come out has really taken 7 steps back. Everything that's come out has not been able to just top standards. Endgame and Infinity War were definitely game changers. Shang-Chi was, like, this series of the this phase, I guess, of the Marvel universe just doesn't seem to like hit as different. I mean, look, I guess it's funny, it's doing a tone, but it's like, what is it? Is She-Hulk going to fucking dinner? Like, is she just out? What happened to comic book identities? That's one other problem I have with the Marvel universe, is that like, they used to be able to tell street level stories, and now everything is save the world or save the universe type stories. And they can't really go back to the traditional like, hey, I'm Daredevil and I'm just a guy that's a lawyer in the daytime, hides my secret identity, and I have to save my city, my neighborhood. You know what I mean? Or Spider-Man still kind of has that vibe, but everything is about saving the universe, saving the planet, saving the ultimate bad guy, which I think takes away from what a lot of Marvel is good at. They're really good at like, making you connect with the average like person or superhero. Yeah, I'm on board with them too. They don't have them right in theory because they just throw them in the mix to make biased gender consumers happy. If they actually focus on a woman lead movie, it'd be fire. Versus throwing them in the mix, in my opinion, that has some play. I think there's a way. Yeah, like I feel like they're still figuring out how to write like strong female characters or female characters in general as the leads, because they're doing it in a way where they're like almost overcorrecting, and it's not, I don't know, it's just not hitting right. I feel like you give character development. Like, I saw a really good movie recently, Everything Everywhere at Once, which I think I'll do a review on that movie. That was a female lead, and they did that movie very well. It's probably one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's in my top 5 of all movies, just that one movie. Like, and I saw it recently, like a month ago. I've seen it twice since. So, and that's a female lead, and I think it was incredibly well written because they don't take her out of a context that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And so, and they give her character development, and like, you got to let people fail, But I think it's part of the process. I think as they write more female characters, they'll take them out of this narrative box that they put a lot of them in, and they'll just put a good movie. They'll just make a good movie and a good character. And, the fact that they're a female or a male doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Which is a good thing, I think. But yeah, I'm not really excited for She-Hulk. I'm not really and I'm starting to lose interest on like watching everything in Marvel for like the story of the Marvel universe. Okay, like you have to watch this because it adds to the Marvel universe, right? Like you have to watch every single movie because it adds to the Marvel universe. You got to know what happens. And I used to be like, I used to suffer through the mid movies to be like, oh, the grander story is still good. I want to see where it's going. Now I don't know where it's going, and it doesn't seem important, and I'm kind of like whatever about it. You know what I mean? But Scarlett. Okay, wait. I think I skipped one. Yeah, Scarlett Johansson was done pretty well. A lot of build up went into her to throw all the movies right over, but other chicks have been drugged into the limelight at the right time. Scarlett Johansson was done. Black Widow was done very well. I agree with you on that. And then, but then you just have Captain Marvel as another example of this like OP character that like give her some character development to build up to that. And I don't know if again maybe I'm not the most connected with the comics version of them. Maybe they are that strong up front, and maybe, but I feel like there is character development. There's still room for them to become the final version of themselves instead of giving them all up front and just like watch them win every time. That takes away from the drama. So you may be making thinking you're endearing the character, but you're harming the overall movie. Which I think, again, like the more that they get feedback on these kind of things, it might take a few years. We're going to start getting very good characters. The knowledge of how to think the cancel culture really affected a lot. If directors don't do what the biased consumer wants now, it can be canceled. Yeah, that's true for everything, though. They've been doing that. That's always been true for Hollywood. The moment someone doesn't like whatever and it affects it, making people to change product too much. Yeah, I mean... Exactly, like I think movies have suffered from that, and then like the underground, the indie movies, right, are the ones that like they're not for everybody. They're for really niche like audiences, and so they are a critique of like the current system Instead of like the mainstream bigger movies are like they go along with the system. They're like, hey, what's popular? What's unquestioned right now? You know what I'm saying? And so when you watch a lot of the bigger movies, and let's face it, Marvel is one of the biggest, one of the biggest things going on right now. They're gonna go along with a lot of the current events, with the current opinions and things like that. And then like the more underground indie movies, they're the ones that are gonna be doing the like critiquing of the system, finding that niche audience, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? I think that's but even more this generation than ever. Yeah, hey man, the 80s and 90s were great for those like those types of movies, like Quentin Tarantino movies, like those indie like raw movies, like real. There were real movies. They were like they weren't part of a franchise. They were just like, hey, this is a one and done. I miss those kind of movies. Sizable Spartan, what's up, my brother? How you doing, Sizable? How you been, bro? Her CGI is crazy. Like, okay, her shit CGI is crazy. Okay, that's accurate. Okay, because I was like, I don't know if you just came in, Sizable, but I was critiquing her CGI, and it's in her face. Like it becomes really unbelievable when you watch her face. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like you can tell that you can tell that it's like it takes you out of it as soon as you see her face. It's like cartoony immediately. You know?